Hello YouTube, welcome back over to GamingHouse, and today we're going to be talking about my thoughts and impressions and what I'd like to see change with the Division that comes out next month. The beta is still currently going on, they extended it, but I'm pretty much tapped out for playing it all the weekend and combination of work and catching up on editing. Starting off, I really enjoyed the beta. I think a majority of my friends did enjoy the beta. I encouraged them all to check out to see if they enjoyed it or not so they can decide whether or not they were going to get it. But it's safe to say a majority of my friends that did try it are pretty satisfied and are looking forward to actually getting the full game, as am I. Let's start off with the PvE side of things. I find that, of course, this has been said since the alpha for those of us that have either not cared about the NDA or have spoken about it or allowed to speak about it now. And it applies also to darkzone. That's the amount of AI spawning in. It seems kind of empty-ish, which may fit the theme that, this is supposed to be a kind of like dystopian New York City after it's been hit by a viral thing, but an increase in the number of AI spawning or an increase in possible difficulty would be great to see in both the Dark Zone and in the regular game, open area, single player, whatever you want to call it. The concern shared universally amongst a lot of players, YouTubers, and in general the community is there going to be enough content, which is something we can't exactly know until the full game comes out and we get to play the rest of the game ourselves, as it was a beta which had the exact same space as the alpha and same restrictions and everything, something I was a little disappointed about. I was hoping we were going to see another mission or perhaps see the crafting or other abilities, but we did not. And again, backtracking to the actual topic, unsure whether or not there will be enough content at launch, and well, we'll just have to wait and see. Another notable aspect of the PvE side of things is when we're playing missions and such, it does scale to the player. In other words, if you went through, say, that first mission and you were level 5 and you now ranked up to level 8 and decided to go back to the mission again, those enemies will now be a rank 8, which is great and also bad for, say, when you're playing with a group, because if you're playing with groups that are lower level than you, it scales to the highest player in the game. So if they're level 5s and you're level 8, the enemies will be level 8s versus them that's also level 5s, meaning they do reduced damage at the bigger disadvantage than they could hope to imagine. And I both like and don't like that system. You can luckily create more than one character, so if you have friends that jump late in the game, say in Division's later life cycle, you might want to just create a new character and go with them. Otherwise you're kind of screwing your friends with anyone that's gotten it first and has their super high level character now. Another great thing of scaling that I've seen in the game, particularly it's the missions again, is that when you're playing with more than one person, you get a greater amount of enemies, and I have some clips here to kind of show and reinforce that. So when playing with larger groups, you get a nice bigger amount of enemies to shoot at, so it doesn't feel like it's the same amount of enemies you're dragging through with a larger group that'll easily just squash them all. And I find that a very nice addition to this game. There were some bugs encountered in the game. We had one that was encountered by a couple of us, and myself included, where after dying, you would continue to have the red hue on your screen from being severely wounded, and it won't go away unless you get severely wounded again, or you had to quit out of the game. Another where I was the only one to experience this, where the extraction was bugged out and glitched, and it would arrive, but it wouldn't drop a rope for me. It would drop it for my friends, and I'd literally watch them put the items on there, but I couldn't place them, and I had to quit out the game to be able to extract gear I had from the dark zone. But other than that, I don't think there were too many glitches. Other things concerned some collision stuff, where trying to open doors and it wouldn't necessarily work. So now, let's get into the dark zone, which is where a lot of people are kind of divided on, depending on who you watch, who you follow on YouTube. In particular, whether or not they're more for PvE content or PvP content. Which the dark zone is where the PvP element is optional. I say again, it is optional, which means if you are actively engaging in PvP, you are generally being an asshole. And while I can understand the element of wanting to have engage in PvP, or also if you're bored, in general, in my personal opinion, you're just being an asshole because it's optional and you're choosing to be an asshole. Or at least that's the impression I could get for some of the clips where they just come up right behind people and lay into them, which, you know, if you're looking for PvP, it doesn't seem very honorable or cool or anything just to go up alongside someone and shoot them in the back till they die and they had no idea. But in general, trying to get a bit more on track here, I like the dark zone for what it is. It is tense and can be a very mixed bag of whether or not it's fun or not, depending on how many rogues you run into, if you're looking for rogues or not looking for rogues, and how many AI you run into, which is a universal problem of, again, not enough spawning quickly enough or what have you, not generating enough loot and things to do in the dark zone. Again, this was this small area, whereas full game will have a more broader area to explore in. And now getting back to the rogue aspect of the game, where, of course, if you engage a player after you cross a certain threshold, you become rogue. Becoming rogue has its own benefits that yield. You get dark zone funds for killing other players and also surviving the bounty. Now, here's where it gets very mixed for me. At least in our experiences, the system needs to be tweaked, and I find it very hard to find a system that's going to appeal to everyone in this case, and I think it's very hard to, given how the game plays out. But for instance, there's several instances where you are being engaged and the guy doesn't cross the damage threshold, so he doesn't go rogue yet, but he's still shooting at you. And then if you engage them heavily enough, you become rogue instead. There's other instances where if you're at, say, an extraction, and there's people there that don't have loot that show up, and you can pretty much tell these guys are going to try to jump us because it's 3 people that don't have loot. They shouldn't be anywhere near an extraction whatsoever. Oh look, they're spreading out and taking up defensive positions. We need to do something, because if we... it sucks. We engage first, we become rogue. But then again, if you want to wait for them to become rogue, you're putting yourself at a severe disadvantage of letting them lay into you first and getting the setup first. And it's a sucky situation, and I'm not sure how to tweak the general rogue system except for a possible addition they might be able to do, experiment with before the game comes out. So the first part of it is to perhaps lower the time for the first time offensive going as a rogue player. Say if it was anything accidental, by causing just enough damage to go rogue or anything, to lower the time it takes to get out of rogue so that they aren't stuck running half the time and engaging players to try and defend themselves because they don't want to lose their loot and everything else. So they just got to run and they can get out of it. And that'll be a clear intent that these people did it accidentally when they're running away and not trying to kill everyone still. The other thing, which is the actual thing that might actually require work, is to somehow add some kind of probation system. We talked about this in 1 or 2 videos that I don't think are up yet because they haven't uploaded them yet because I want to try to get this up. And to add some kind of probation system, and this lets other players know and everyone else know that these are players that are going rogue. And because if you play long enough in a dark zone area, you can kind of pick out which players are going rogue. You might have seen them once or twice already, you know to avoid them. But I think there needs to be a greater assist in this area, and that's to add some kind of probation system. Say if you die as a rogue, Depending on what level rogue you are, you're going to get a white skull by your name now, and that's going to be like a symbol of, hey, this guy's been going rogue, look out for this guy. That guy is also has to do less damage to cross into the rogue state, and will automatically go up in like rogue state rank higher and such. And I think when players engage that person, they have a greater threshold to cross before the other player goes rogue, to kind of like try and ward them off, like, hey, I know you're bad, get the fuck away from me, I'm trying to do my shit. And then they could add different like levels to the probation, just like the rogue system. Like literally you could just kind of copy and almost paste the rogue system to make it into this, but I'm not the coding genius, nor am I gonna have to be the one that has to code all this and place it in the game. So I hope that's something they can kind of implement. The rogue system is very iffy currently, and I hope they can reach a kind of impasse and quasi-compromise system with it that benefits both sides of the party, even though, again, PvPers, you're being assholes intentionally. So final thoughts also on the amount of grinding a player might have to do. As that's another concern that I didn't mention before, is of course people were wondering how long they're going to have to grind for like good gear. And in my opinion, from my experiences, is it didn't take long to grind for good gear. You can get good gear somewhat relatively easily by replaying missions, drops from named yellow enemies, and also the dark zone. You can get decent gear by those areas. If you want really good gear, and this is part of the thing I like about the gear, is the gear has lots of layers to it. It has both its armor, which is beneficiary. It also adds to a stat, whether it's firearms, electronics, or health. And it also has this tiny other little perks that might be, say, increasing amount of ammo carried, increasing damage with a certain weapon, and it's those little layers to get like your perfect build out that you're gonna have to sit there and definitely grind and try to get. So, in short game, like short sight, if you don't care about that stuff, you're gonna get good gear, and you're gonna get gear that you like. What's gonna be the real guy is getting gear that you absolutely want to build a perfect agent to help activate talents on weapons, or to get the build that you want. That's where you're going to have to grind a whole lot, is to get your perfect gear. But that'll do it for thoughts and impressions on the Division beta. I'm looking forward to the game. Let me know in the comments if you're looking forward to the game at all. If you got to play the beta, didn't get to play the beta because, you know, they weren't sending out enough codes. And your general thoughts and impressions, and also let me know what you think of the video. As always, like, comment, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. And as always, you're welcome to come back over to Gaming House for more gameplay and commentary.